Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. Every year, we like to sit down on the podcast and share our goals for the new year, everything from career to finances to life. And this year, we're doing it again. I love hearing what other people are working on. It always leaves me feeling really inspired. And so we hope this episode does the same for you.
I love setting New Year's goals. I feel like you either love them or you hate them. Some people are so anti-New Year's goals, but I am such a New Year's goals person. And it seems like a lot of you guys are too, because we've been filming New Year's goals episodes since 2023 now. So this is our third episode on it, and you guys seem to really like them every time we publish them. So it seems like you guys are New Year's people too. But on this podcast, we also want to give you the tools necessary to actually achieve your goals. So in today's episode, Grace and I are just going to be going back and forth talking about some of our goals for the new year, hopefully to inspire you to set your own. But then in January, we have a 4-part series coming up to give you all of the tools necessary to actually make 2026 your best year yet. So listen to this episode, think about your goals, but then make sure to come back in January to actually make 2026 your best year yet.
Yes, I'm really excited. We have so much planned for January, but also just like the rest of 2026. We've been working on so many other things, which I'm really excited about. And I think you all are really going to love, which we'll share too later in when we get to, we're going to share our individual goals and then we're going to share some podcast goals because you guys seem to really love when we kind of pull back the curtain on that. And I think it's cool too. I'm really nosy. I want to know what people's goals are for not only themselves, but their businesses. I'm like, tell me what you're working on. I want to know.
It also does help to like peel back the curtain. Even if you don't have a podcast, I feel like it's so applicable to whatever you're working on, just to hear kind of like the steps that people are taking, because we want to talk about, when it comes to the podcast, we want to talk about things that we're working on in the very short term, like what are our immediate goals, but then also our long-term vision for what we're doing here. And if you've been listening to this podcast week over week, which I know so many of you have because you leave the comments in Spotify, which is like actually so crazy. But if you've been listening to this week over week, I think it's helpful to kind of give you insight into what we see this being long term and our goals for some of that. So I'm super excited, but let's get into some of our individual goals first. Grace, do you want to kick us off with your first one?
Yes, I would love to. And I want to preface by saying too, I don't know if I said this in the episodes that we had 2 years ago, because I don't know what I said a year ago or 2 years ago. Honestly, I don't know what I said yesterday. But I think I used to be someone who, the second I had a goal, I wanted to just tell everybody. I wanted to share it because I felt like there was so much power in speaking your goals out loud. But I would sometimes share things prematurely. And what I found was that it's not that I want to move in secret now, but I found that sometimes I didn't even give myself enough time to think about that goal, or for me as a Christian to like talk to God about that goal, or, I just would just put it out there immediately. And then I would let external opinion come in and influence how I felt about that goal, what I thought was possible. I am a dreamer. I have very big dreams. I have a very, very big vision for my life, which I know, everyone probably listening to this podcast does as well. We want a lot of big things. And so sometimes I would end up sharing what I wanted out of life or what my goal was. And then people who maybe think smaller would, have their opinions or their insecurities would project onto that goal. And so I've learned, honestly, recently, like in the last few months, I feel like that it's okay to have a goal and keep them to yourself for some time and savor that goal, like just with yourself, or for me, just like, between me and God, just like giving myself time to process it. And so I want to preface by saying I am sharing some goals in this episode, and these are like the goals that I feel comfortable sharing. But next year, if you see me pop out with something crazy, just know I've been working on it. I've been working on it for a while. Okay.
I relate to this so much because especially being like doing things in public, especially with social media, you always hear the advice to build in public, but you also have to know how to pivot and when to pivot and pivot fast. And it's really hard when you're kind of speaking your goals into existence and then you realize that you want to pivot and you're like, crap, I already spoke this into the world. People are cheering me on for my goal. And now it's not even my goal anymore. I don't even want it anymore. And that's so natural too. When you're in your 20s or 30s or however old you are listening to this episode, we're all indecisive people and we naturally, our goals change and what we want out of life changes. So when you speak things into existence, I feel like you think you're holding yourself accountable by doing it, but you end up kind of doing yourself a disservice because it makes it harder to pivot.
Yes, and I think it creates, like you said, there's like this expectation. I know, which I'm going to talk about this as like one of my goals, but when I was like, oh, I really want to, buy a home and I'm saving for a home, and then things went so far left with my health this year, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take the pressure off myself, and like if it's meant to happen, it will happen, but I'm not going to like, drive myself nuts over it. I need to prioritize my health. There were some people who were like, I feel like you just gave up, like you're giving up on this, you gave up on yourself, like, you changed your mind. And I was like, yeah, I changed my mind because I got additional information that made me realize like, yeah, I should probably, instead of like not getting surgery that I need to have a better quality of life because I want to put that money in my home sinking fund, I should probably get the surgery. Like this is really dumb. Like we need to figure this out. But yeah, there was definitely like perception, but also I think sometimes it creates an added layer of pressure because there are lots of external opinions, especially in our case when you're sharing everything so publicly, where it's like, I actually just kind of want to like focus on how I feel about this goal. How does it feel in my body when I talk to myself about it, when I think about it in silence? How do I feel? Not, oh, well, I have to do this because somebody else is watching. And I think sometimes that's why, people will be really surprised when they find out things about my life. Even they're like, I didn't even know you did that. And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't really want to share it because I just wanted to like explore it in private without any additional pressure. But all that to say, these are the goals that I feel really comfortable sharing and I'm happy to like chat about. But there is so much I'm working on for 2026 and I'm really, really excited and hopeful. If you've listened to the podcast all year, you know the year I've had, and I'm very excited for a new fresh year. Okay, my first goal, I'm starting with my financial ones. My first goal is to double my income. And I'm not going to say like what that number is. I don't share that publicly, but the way that I've looked at this is I'm like, what, like, why not? Like, maybe that sounds crazy, but I'm like, I think that you should aim high because like the worst that happens is you fall a little bit short of that. But if you aim low and you get to that low point, okay, you know what I mean? Like if I said, oh, I want to only make $10,000 more than I did last year, that's very achievable, first of all, with some strategy. And then if I get there, okay, but if I say I want to double my income and then I only like 1.25 times it or 1.5 times it, okay, like I still moved forward. And the way that I also view goals, and I feel like I should probably say this too, because I think it connects with the goals that I have. I am not a super, super metric based person when it comes to goals. I'm more based on the feeling or like I guess how a goal makes me feel. So instead of me saying, I want to make, just using like fake numbers here, I want to make $100,000. If I say I want to make $100,000, I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't hit that exact number because I can look at it and say the root of what I want there is I want more like freedom and control and flexibility with my finances, which is what I want out of my financial goal. So as long as I move forward, I'm going to be like satisfied because as long as I move forward, I'm going to have more freedom, flexibility, and control than I had on day one. So when I say double my income, that's like the goal, but I'm not fixated on the number.
When it comes to my income, I definitely have goals for this too, but I see them more as career goals, not financial goals, because obviously being self-employed, all of our finances are directly correlated to our business and our career. And I was thinking about this a lot this month specifically because I redid my budget template for 2026 and that is a pretty solid stream of income for me. It has been for years. I've been selling my budget template since 2022. And I feel like in 2025, it's not that I stopped caring about it because obviously I use it. I use it every single week, but I kind of stopped caring about marketing it because I don't know why. I just like kind of stopped caring about marketing it. But in December, I like kind of had this realization that like it's making such a good impact on so many people. And I want to set my goal like correlated with my budget template because I know how much of an impact it's making on people. Like I've got such good feedback on it in 2025 of people saying, I've used this consistently all year. It helped me so much with my finances. My template's only $10. So I know I'm providing more than $10 of value to the person that has purchased it. So I kind of had that realization, like, focusing on my career income goals related to the stream of income that's actually making the most impact on people, especially as content creators. Like obviously brand partnerships are a stream of income for us. Like how can I, instead of setting goals to get more brand sponsorships and things, I want to focus more on my budget template and that stream of income and set goals related to that stream of income because I know that it's creating an impact for other people. So for me, what that looks like this year is want to double the amount of money that I've made on my template in any given year. So how much I made in 2025, I want to double that for 2026. So it's not necessarily like it's more of a career goal than a financial goal because obviously that's really going to impact my career strategy and what I'm focused on for 2026. But I was just kind of thinking about it as, what stream of income actually does make the most impact for people. And it's that. And then also with the podcast, which we're going to talk about at the end of this episode as well. That's a big goal for me with my career in 2026 as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I also, maybe I'm Delulu, but I think you can absolutely do that. I think you can make more than double. I don't even know what you made off the template. None of my business, but I think you can make more than double whatever it was. I just think like it's funny too, because I'm going to like skip ahead very quickly and then go back. But for my career one, I feel like I'm really surrendering like my career goal. I'm really surrendering to what I feel like God has for me and like moving in that direction. But one of the goals that I wrote down on here, which is funny that you just said that, one of the goals I have is like recentering on a desire for impact because I feel like when I started doing social media, I started with personal finance education content, which I know you did too. And that's how we met. And I was just so focused on like, if I can just help people be smarter with their money, I can help them live happier lives because they'll feel more in control of their money and that will relieve stress and make them feel more like, okay, I've got this covered. And it was all around like impact. And I didn't even really know how you could make money on TikTok. Like it didn't really make sense to me. I just felt like this was fun and yeah. And I was like, it'd be really cool if this turned into something one day, but content creation was nowhere near what it is today. And that was at the core of everything. And not that I ever lost my desire to impact people because I've always had that. But when it starts to turn into more of a business, you have to think very strategically. Like you can't just say, I just want to like help people all day long and you never think about how your business is making money. Like you have to think about that. And sometimes, I closed down my newsletter recently because I was spending a few hours a week doing it, like every single week. It was getting to the point where like, I wasn't making anything from it. People were really loving it, but I was looking at everything that was on my plate and I thought, I have way too many things like pulling me in all these different directions. And I have to think about what each thing I'm spending time on is doing for me, for others, and for my business. And when I really thought about it, I was like, okay, the newsletter it's not helping me make more money. It's not helping my business grow. I'm not reaching more people through the newsletter because it's not public. You have to subscribe to like, see it. And I was like, and I can't even connect with my audience deeper because I can't, you can comment on it, but I don't even think I can comment back to you and you can't comment and engage with each other. So I'm like, how is this actually creating anything that is going to like really push me or other people forward? Yes, the content in it is really good for pushing people forward and people loved the content. That's a thing. Like it performed really well. It had great open rates and click-through rates, but it didn't make the most sense. And so I thought, okay, if I could take those, 3 hours a week I was spending on that and direct it towards the podcast, like that's something that we can reach more people. We can impact people there. We can go deeper, even deeper than a newsletter in a podcast episode. Right. And, I just think recentering on impact, like that's one of my like career goals. And I think naturally when you do that and you're fueled by how much you're impacting other people, like things will fall into place. I don't know. I think when you open your heart to that, it's like you said, you're selling something that makes such an impact on people. And if you really let that be your driver, that shows through to other people. And then people also enjoy engaging with you more because you've made an impact. But you do have to think about it too as like a business owner, which obviously you're like, it's a solid stream of income. I'm going to scale that. So I think
Yeah, and
impact is important.
I think that's what's been drawing us to the podcast so much in 2024 and 2025 is just we know that we have the platform to make such an impact here. And not even just because we obviously both did start in the personal finance education space. And money still is a pillar of what we talk about on the podcast. We have a lot of episodes on money that can really help you with your finances, but it kind of goes one step deeper in gaining that control over your life, and whether that be from a career perspective or from a lifestyle perspective. We have episodes here on entrepreneurship, side hustles, content creation, really just like empowering people and giving them the tools necessary to live the big life that they want to live, which genuinely can help so many people and can provide such an impact. So yeah, we're definitely on the same page there with our career goals going into 2026. And hopefully that shines through with the podcast, because we do have so many big goals for this in 2026 that I'm super excited to talk about.
Yeah, I'm hyped. I think also too, going back to like my financial goals, I think the other two I'll just like list off quickly is I put like honestly, I this was when I was thinking of sitting down kind of prepping for this episode, I was like, what are my 2026 goals? And I haven't had a ton of time to really like I like to do a vision meditation and really like think of what I want for the next year and visualize the next year. And this time of year is chaotic. And we're filming this the week before Christmas, and I'm like going home for Christmas. And so I'm like, I don't have a, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And so didn't have a ton of time to really think deeply. And so this is kind of an arbitrary number, but I would love to save another $20,000 for my car. I have a goal of paying for my next car in cash, and my car is 17 years old. And so I think like she will unfortunately probably be at the end of her life in the next couple of years. And so my dream car, not that I have to buy my dream car, because I think if it came time to buy a car, I would rather just buy something that is within whatever cash I've saved rather than finance something, because I don't want to finance a depreciating asset. But my dream car is a Toyota Land Cruiser, which
So
I know.
is mine.
Wait, really?
Yeah, we've talked about that on the podcast
Wait.
before.
Oh
how
my
that's
gosh,
both of our
wait,
dream
I totally
cars.
forgot about that. Oh my gosh. I love a Toyota. I have one now. Again, it's 17 years old and has 170,000 miles on it. And it's just, they're so reliable. And that's the way that I think. I'm not a car person to where I care about like the status or anything like a car comes with, or I want something that is reliable, that I'd feel comfortable putting my future children in, and that I think is going to really like get me bang for my buck and is going to last. And that is to me, that's like a Toyota or a Subaru, and like I think Hondas are pretty good too. So I would love to be able to buy that car and pay for it in cash, but it is in fact $57,000 as the starting price, and I think the color that I want would
Yeah,
make it
it would
more.
probably be like 70, because I've looked at the Land Cruiser too.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I'd
but
want
they're
all the
so
bells and
nice.
whistles. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
gorgeous. So, and I would only buy that if it was like, well, like right now there'd be no need for a $70,000 car, but like I would buy it down the line. That is, I would say, my other financial goal, just to increase that savings. And then the other one that I don't know if I'm going to share publicly on my page yet or not, but if you're listening to the podcast, you get the juicy tea. But I would like to buy a home this year. I know externally it might look like I've gone like back and forth on this like a million times and that I'm like flip-floppy, but I really wanted to buy a home when my lease was up, which is in the end of April. Then when all of the health things happened this year, it kind of shook me to my core, where I felt like you don't make any big decisions, just focus on, your health. Don't make any no big decisions, nothing crazy. And it also made me feel like I had to, I don't know, just like, I don't want to say like play it safe, because I wouldn't like, I'm not buying something that's outside my means or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of like changed my perspective on a lot of things and made me feel very fearful about making any sort of big decision. And so when I realized like I need to just prioritize my health, I wanted to take other things off my plate. I was like, okay, we're going to take the home search off my plate. And that's when I stopped looking. But then once I had surgery and I actually was like able to like come to afterwards and really think about what I want, every time I visualize the next year, I visualize myself in a different space. And I think that was like something that I didn't want to admit in a way, because it's not necessarily the quote unquote like safer choice, in the sense that, again, not that I'm buying something out of my means or making a sort of rush decision. Like I wouldn't do it if I don't feel at peace about it. But when I thought about like, what do I want out of the next year? What do I want out of the next 5 years? I've talked about it for years. I've had a desire to get into real estate, to buy something that I live in for a little bit, and then I eventually turned into a rental. And I think I kind of twiddled my thumbs about it, like when I moved here, because I was like, no, you should rent first, which I do think is smart to a degree, to like rent something first before you decide if you're going to live somewhere for a longer period of time. But for example, if I had bought something right when I came here, then I would be lived in it for a year already, and I'd have one more year left before I could rent it, depending on the loan type. And so I think that I get into this trap as an individual, like overall, of waiting for the perfect time for something, where I feel like yeah, where I just feel like everything is so perfect. And then I delay things for years and years. And I've done it with a lot of things in my life. And when I really think about like the vision I have for the next year, I see myself in a home. Now, I don't know when that will happen. That part I'm saying is not my business. Like, that's God's business, not mine. And I trust the timing of that. And even if it doesn't happen this year, that's fine too. I trust that timing. But when I really think about where I see myself purchasing something that I live in for a bit and then I turn into a rental and then I buy, my home that I want to live in like for longer and longer, afterwards. But the more I sat with it with myself and talked to God about it, the more I felt like aligned to that. That's what
Yeah.
feels exciting to me. And
Yeah.
it's
And you're allowed to go back and forth on it. Like you said that at the
yes.
beginning, it might seem like I'm back. You're allowed to go back and forth with your goals. And like once you are getting more answers and like doing more research, you're allowed to go back and forth on the timing or
Yeah.
whatever you want out of it. You're allowed to go back and
Yeah.
forth.
And I think too, sometimes and I'm glad that I took the time to really sit with it and decide and really think through like, what do I want and what does this all look like? Because as much as I love sharing all these things, like I said in the beginning, as much as I love sharing everything, sometimes it gets difficult when you hear everybody else's opinions on what you should do. And it's nice to talk to, wise friends that you have, or, a lot of people who listen to this podcast or on my own page have like DM'd me and given me advice on how they went about certain things. And I love and appreciate all of that. But sometimes I become too much of a sponge where I soak up too much of other people's opinions and their approaches and their ideas to things. And then when I get squeezed, that's all that comes out. And I'm like, wait, what does Grace think? Like, what does Grace want? Where does Grace see herself? And I'm also really big on how things feel in my body. Like, do I feel excited about it? Do I feel anxious about it? How do I feel? And when I really thought about it, I felt really excited about the potential of buying something, even something that needs like a little renovations. Like, that seems so exciting to me. And I would love to do that, or even something that doesn't. Like, I feel excited about it. And it's crazy because I feel like once you really know what you want and you declare to yourself, like, that's what you want, it's crazy how pieces start to align after that. And that's what I've seen ever since I've been like, you know what? No, like, that is actually what I want. And I'm going to trust that if it's meant to happen, it will unfold in the way that it needs to. Let's just say some of the goals that I'm not sharing here on the podcast, some of those things have already actually started to come to fruition in ways that will help with that goal. And
I
so
love that. Yeah, no, I love that. That's exciting. I'm excited to see what 2025 has entailed for you.
2026, girl. We're in 2025.
2026. Oh, we're in 2025. Okay.
2025
Yeah,
had nothing for
I'm
me.
still in 2025. I'm not. We tried so hard to do this outline, but like we said, we're still a couple weeks out from 2026 when we're filming this. So I'm still totally in 2025 mode.
Yeah.
But 2026 is going to be a good year.
It
On
is.
my financial goals side, I only have one here right now, and I kind of feel like this is good for me to kind of like take a step back on setting really big financial goals, and just kind of like enjoy where I'm at and enjoy my life, if that makes sense. The only financial goal that I have for 2026, I want to save $20,000 for my wedding. Alex isn't home. He can't hear me talking about this. But,
It's like, Alex, get moving.
but obviously, like one of my life goals, with that being said, for 2026 is to get engaged. And we've talked about that, and like that timing feels really good for both of us. But obviously, after an engagement comes a wedding. And I feel like I've talked about this on the podcast before, and maybe I'm just naive, but I'm always so curious how people get the money for their wedding, because it kind of seems like it's not really something that people save for before they're engaged or in a serious relationship. But then once you are, things do kind of happen like pretty quick. And I don't want to take any money from my parents for my wedding. I don't know if they're intending to give me anything, but I don't want to take anything from them. I really want to pay for it by myself. And I'm sure Alex's family would also offer to chip in. But again, I don't want to take any family money. I want to pay for it by myself. And him and I have talked about what we want to do. And we do want something small. I don't want a big wedding. I've never wanted a big wedding. But what we do, the small thing that we do, I still want it to be nice, and I want it to be elevated, and I want it to feel like me. So that's still going to take some money, and $20,000 feels like a good number for that. So that's my big financial goal in 2020. And I guess one of my big life goals is to get engaged.
Girl, when we're doing this episode this time next year, you best be engaged. You
Oh,
better. And if
yeah.
not,
Well,
I'm going
first
to
of
have a
all,
strong word for Mr. Alex. I'm just kidding. I don't even know him like that.
no, literally, Alex. I mean, he'll be 34 in June. I don't know if I've ever said that on the podcast before, but he's 7 years older than me. So he'll be 34 in June. So I would be very, very surprised if it didn't happen before his 30th birthday. Like, that's
Yeah, like
crazy.
make some moves. Come on, guys. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. You guys are so sweet. And I think you guys work so well together. And I think that's, I mean, that's definitely your person. So that's exciting. And honestly, with the wedding thing, I know people go into debt for their weddings. And I know everyone has a different threshold for what they are comfortable with financially, but that scares the heck out of me. Or they finance things and like do like a payment plan for this and whatever. And if there's, if you're like, okay, we're going to book our venue a year in advance because we like really want this specific thing and we don't have enough to book the whole venue. So we're going to do a 0 interest payment plan with the venue over the next year. Fine, whatever. But it really scares me. I don't want to have to be paying off my wedding. That's just like a value that like I know for some people and in some cultures, weddings are just like bigger deal. I'm very much single. I don't have no prospects, and I have a goal actually on this that I will share in a minute. But I want like a like literally like 30 to 40 person wedding. Like
Yeah.
I want no one there.
Well,
Very tiny.
our immediate families are both ginormous. Like, between the
Mhm.
two of us, we have 20 nieces and nephews.
Oh my gosh.
And our nieces and nephews are obviously going to come to our wedding. Like,
Yeah.
probably no other kids, but our nieces and nephews will be there. So I think our immediate families alone are like 40 people total.
Wow.
So I do think it'll probably end up being like 60 to 80 people counting our nieces and nephews, which feels like a comfortable number for us.
Mhm.
But my thing is, I don't like eyeballs on me, which is actually, it sounds really funny since I do social media, but that's like so different because it's online and I kind of just post the video and don't have to think about it. But I hate eyeballs on me in person. And
Yeah.
the thought of 200 people staring at me walking down the aisle and then 200 people staring at us like doing our first dance sounds absolutely terrible to me.
Mhm.
So we just won't be doing that. I think we said what we're
Yeah.
going to do is get married in the church and then just have a dinner with 60 to 80 people and then everybody go home. Because we also hate to stay up late. And we also hate to binge drink too. So there's kind of like nothing about a wedding that we actually like.
I was saying to my friends when I had my birthday party and we hosted it at my apartment, and on the invitation I literally put like 6 to 10 p.m. or like 7 to 10. Like, and it was because the common areas in my apartment close at 10, but I was like, no, please leave by 10. So like at like
Leave by 10.
9:45, everyone was like cleaning up. I'm like, thank you so much, guys. I love that you abide by the rules. Like I want an end time at a party. But I'm the same way with a wedding. I'm not close with any of my extended family, really. I have like maybe, an aunt or two that I talk to like slightly more frequently, but I'm really not close with any of them. I have a couple family friends I would invite, but other than that, it's really just my mom, dad, brother, and my friends. Granted, I don't know how many people will be in my husband's family. And if he has a huge family, we'll have to make that work. But I genuinely think that I would have like maybe 20 people that I would want to invite. 30, maybe 30 people, because my birthday was like 20 people. So maybe like 30 people that I would want to invite to my actual wedding. Like there's not that many people I want there. And I'm big on energy. So I'm like, I'm not going to invite my grouchy uncle. Like, I don't want your energy there, because I want this to be a joyous day, not a day where I'm like, I haven't spoken to you in 5 years. Like, why are you here? Yeah, I just don't. I'd rather
No.
have a cheaper wedding and then have like a big, bougie, crazy honeymoon where I literally do like insane things. So
100%.
yeah, I would love that. But on that note, I'm skipping around my list a little bit. One of my goals for 2026, please get me off the market. Please, Lord, get me off the market. Oh my goodness. Granted, I trust the timing of it all. I'm not rushing. I don't want to rush and settle. I always say it all the time. I would rather have fewer years with the right person than more years with the wrong person. And if you settle, you get more years with the wrong person. And then you're stuck. And what you gonna do? Because now you're with the wrong person and you're with someone that you don't like. And I don't want to do that. So I trust the timing and I will wait as long as I need to be with the right person. However, if I could have it my way in 2026, I would end 2026 engaged. And I know that might seem like fast to some people, but I think the older you get, you learn more and more about what you're looking for. And I think when you date with like so much intention, to me, it's not like a fast timeline to like be engaged in a year. And I think with the way that I desire, like the order that I'm looking for in terms of like how my relationship unfolds and what happens, like, yeah, before getting married versus after, I could see myself engaged to someone in a year and being married. So, Lord, please, in 2026.
You'll find him.
No, I will. I will find him. I do have a good feeling about it. And again, I'm not worried. And I love being like alone. I love my life and I'm only going to be with someone if they really add something. But dating gets tiring. And I do think when dating starts to not be fun is when you need to take a break. And so I took a little break recently because I was like, I've had enough of this. And then now we're back out in the field. Yeah, no, I mean, if we're dreaming really big, I would love to find my person in
Yeah, and
2026.
I always say, like, my friends and I talk about this all the time, but everything else in your life kind of needs to settle into place before you are able to find your person. Like, this year was really about settling into, like, finding the state that you wanted to live in and settling into your friendships and your community. And obviously,
Mhm.
your career, you've been settled into for a while. So, all of those pieces personally are starting to fall into place for
Yeah,
you. So, you're really at like the correct stage of your life to find your person.
absolutely. Even I just think about all the health things that I had going on this year. I mean, I took a break from dating for months this year because I'm like, if I'm upright and breathing on a day and not crying, I'm like, that's a win of a day. And that's not the space I want to enter a relationship in, especially with my future husband. If it's like, if I'm in a relationship with someone and I'm having bad season with my health or bad health days, fine, right? That's, if I'm with my person, obviously we're going to work through that. That's something that comes with being in a relationship with me. But in terms of like going on first dates and dating new people when my life was hellish this year, I'm like, how do I even describe this? No, not the energy I want to like enter a relationship in. So now that it's like I'm settled in that, I'm settled in where I want to live, I'm feeling more grounded in a lot of areas of life. I agree. I think it makes a lot more sense. And I am
Yeah.
entering it with so much clarity. The way that I view, which I asked this on my story the other day, if you guys would want an episode on dating. And if you would, please let us know. Dating is something I could talk about so much because I personally run a very strict program. And I think that women should run a stricter program. And I think that everyone would benefit if women ran a stricter program when it comes to dating in terms of like not settling, what we accept, all these things. And my program, as the days have gone on in 2025, have gotten stricter and stricter and stricter. And I think that helps because now it's like when I'm dating, it's like
Yeah.
you're a
I
yes
would
or a no.
I would totally do an episode on dating because my friends always laugh that the road that got me to Alex was in fact very broken. I have like been through the ringer with relationships and have learned a lot about what I don't want in a partner to get me to the point that I am today. So
Hmm.
we can totally do an episode on dating in early 2026. Let us know on
Yeah.
Spotify if you guys would like that, because I would totally want to talk about it too. I'm also skipping around on my list here, but the next one that I want to talk about, my next goal for 2026 next year, really want to treat Pittsburgh as my home base. But if I think about what next year looks like for me, I kind of do want to be all over the place. Like, I want to do a lot in 2026. I don't want to be in my house all year. And like, I love my home and I'm so happy that I purchased it and I love it as my home base because I am such a homebody. Like, I could never be a digital nomad or someone who just hops around all the time because I'm a homebody at heart. But I feel like I'm kind of just getting to this realization where there's really not that many years left before I have kids. Like, I'm going to be 27 in April and we want children. I want multiple children, like three or
Mhm.
four ideally. And obviously everything happens the way that it's supposed to happen. But if I am thinking about my life and what I see for it, I do want multiple kids. So I don't know how many years I have left before that happens. And I really want to take advantage of Bella being my only dependent and really like having my parents here to watch her and all of that. So yeah, I really want to have more experiences going into 2026 throughout the year. A couple of things that I listed here for that. I really want to try to seek out career opportunities with travel included, like conferences, retreats. I'm actually going to Miami this weekend for a brand campaign. So, like things like that, like really seeking out opportunities that are going to get me out of the house and help me meet people and make new friends and all of that. Um, Alex and I really want to do another big international trip this year. So obviously we went to Japan in July, and that was so good for me just to like remind myself that I can get on a plane and go to another country and fly across
Mhm.
the world. I feel like before that I was not scared, but you kind of, those are the things that you just put off, you know? You're like, "Oh no, it's like too much right now. Like I'll do it next year or another year." But going to Japan really taught me like, no, it's now or never. It's not that hard. Just book the flight, spend the money, get on the plane. Like our years are valuable. So I think we're talking about doing like Eastern Europe before the summer starts, maybe around the May timeframe, and just kind of hopping around Eastern Europe. I've done a lot of Western Europe when I studied abroad in college, but another big international trip. And then also spending more time in Nashville with my friends that I made there. I like miss them so much. I am really sad about it. Two of them have come to visit me so far. I went down to visit them since I left, but I was just FaceTiming with one of them last night, and I do really miss them, and I did develop really good friendships there. So spending more time there. So yeah, just doing a lot in 2026, honestly. Like I want my camera roll at the end of the year to be so full, not because of like the Instagrammable moments, but because of the memories.
Aw, I love that. I feel like it's so it's like this age is such a weird age because I'm having a lot of those thoughts too where I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I let's say it all works out and I'm engaged by the end of 2026." Like, then yeah, when would I mean, I don't want kids right away, but it's like, yeah, I'm 27. I'm turning 28 next year. And it's like, okay, I probably also don't have too many years left before I have kids. And I see kids as a blessing and not a burden. So I'm like, okay, I want to travel with my kids and I want to do things with my kids, but logistically, it obviously is harder. Like, and it's more expensive when you have four children in tow and you've got the, double wide stroller and whatever. It's just, it logistically becomes a lot more difficult. So it's like, yeah, how can I use that time now to be able to do all the things? Plus, I want to be like the really cool grandma who's like telling my grandkids, like, yeah, I did this in my 20s. And like, and I have my camera roll of all these things, these cool stories that I did. And this is funny, a random aside. My dad, when he graduated high school, him and his friends rode their bicycles across the country. Like we grew up in Massachusetts, they rode their bicycles literally all the way to
That's
California.
insane.
And I don't know if they rode back or if they took a train back or like how they got back, but they're literally like what, like 18 years old. This was obviously long ago.
It was safer back then.
Yeah, this was long ago. But they would like literally shower in truck stops and at like, in lakes and fountains and things like that. And they would camp out every night. And he has all these pictures of him riding this, with this bike. He has a picture of him with the bike at the Grand Canyon. And it's like, so cool hearing that kind of story. And he still actually has the bike that he rode across the country in our garage. Like that is such a sick memory to be able to look back on. That's how I feel about when I lived in California for a month and a half and my friend and I just like lived out of an Airbnb and like worked there and explored the cities. Like it was so fun. And I think it is, like you said, it's so good to be rooted somewhere and to have a home base, but also still making room for adventure, like time and financially, just to yeah, get out and like do stuff. Live your life,
Yeah, we're
I don't know.
young. We're
We are.
young.
We are.
Also, biking across the country sounds terrible. I can't
Oh
say
my
that's on my
gosh.
bucket list,
No.
but I like the analogy.
No, I'm like, I love the spirit, Dad. I love the spirit. But I'm like, what? And I like that. I'm like, how'd your butt not hurt for like weeks? I don't understand. That would and just being outside all the time and camping. No, thank you. Maybe I could do one of those like train rides that goes across the country where you like can like lay flat and like what okay, that's fine. You will not catch me on a
Yeah.
bicycle from
Alex
Massachusetts to
always
California.
Speaking of sleeping outside, Alex always tells me that I should go on Survivor because it's my favorite show. I've watched all 49 seasons, which is like actually crazy. 49 seasons
Oh
is
my
kind of a lot,
gosh.
but I'm like addicted to it. I love Survivor so much. And he's always like, you would do so good on the show. Like, you should apply, but you sleep outside and you don't eat. Like, they actually don't eat for 26 days. It's crazy. So I don't think that that's on my bucket list either, but
No.
it's, yeah.
No, I think the second that I need to use the restroom outside, and I know that is such a privileged take. I understand that, but like, no, thank
Absolutely
you.
not.
I will watch other people do those crazy things. Okay, another goal. I'm like, how many more do I have? Oh, I have two more. Well, I guess I'm gonna say this one quickly and then because it's related to what you were saying, and then I'll get into my health and wellness goals. But one of my goals is to travel out of the country. When I was younger, I didn't really have a lot of friends that valued travel. And so I would save money to be able to travel. And I dreamt of traveling, but I had very few friends that valued it. And I feel like when I was younger, I wasn't confident enough or didn't feel like physically safe enough going to different cities by myself because I grew up in the suburbs. So the idea of like having to take public transportation to like random parts of a city. Like I was always afraid of getting lost on it or just like not knowing my way around. But now that I'm older, I feel more comfortable doing a solo trip if necessary. And I also have friends that value travel now. But because I didn't prior, I've traveled around the US a lot, but I've actually only been out of the US twice. I went to Canada when I was like 13 and I went to Aruba last year and I haven't gone anywhere else, which to me is like, for how much I'm savvy with my money, I save, and like for how many credit card points I have, I'm like, we need to be getting out there, girl.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse.
You have career flexibility.
Yes. I'm like, girl,
yes.
like get out there. And I
Mhm.
think this year I wanted to travel a lot this year. And then I was like, well, I need to be in St. Pete to be able to like build my community here. And if you're constantly gone, it's difficult to build community. And then obviously things happened with my health and it just didn't work out. But now that I'm more settled and rooted, I'm like, well, I should do this next year. And so one thing I've actually been looking into, and I know they're very popular. So like if anyone listening has done one, I would love to hear like your thoughts in the comments on Spotify. But I've been looking at like EF Ultimate Break and some of their trips because they're for like our age group and you can kind of just show up alone and like meet people. And I love the idea of being able to do that if I have friends that don't necessarily want to travel. But I would love to go to Europe. Like I want to travel so much in the next few years, and kind of similar to what you were saying, I think like St. Pete will be my home base and I can travel. And also career wise, I've also realized like it might be wise to keep St. Pete as my home base. But when I'm feeling like I need a more entrepreneurial energy, I go to LA for the weekend, or I go to Chicago for a few days, or like whatever it may be, and going to different work events, because to visit a city and live in a city is so different. And that's one thing I realized about LA. Like I love visiting LA. I don't think I would love living in LA. However, I do sometimes crave what those other cities offer that St. Pete doesn't have, like, you know, super entrepreneurial spirit or whatever. So if I am feeling that way, just like traveling to those things now that I have the capacity to do it. So I want to go out of the country and also go to like more conferences and events and things that I feel like really fuel me. So that's kind of like a travel and career goal.
Well, first of all, if you ever want to go on an EF trip, I would 1000% go with you because
Can we
I feel
please?
like, yeah, I feel like there's always, I've talked about this before, there is always going to be a blocker with travel, whether it be money, time, or someone to go with. Like one of those three is going to block you, and you just have to find a way around it, whether that be taking a solo trip if your friends don't want to go, or whether it be using credit card points instead of cash. Like you have to get creative because at the end of the day, it's never going to be convenient to take 10 days to go on a trip. And I know EF does have some shorter trips as well, but realistically, if you're going somewhere far, like 7 to 10 days is probably
I'm not
necessary.
flying like 16 hours to be there for
No.
4 days. Like, no.
No, absolutely not. And I've never taken an EF trip, but when I studied abroad, I took a lot of weekend trips at similar tour companies because at the end of the day, EF is a travel tour company where you pay one fixed price and they're going to take care of everything. They're going to show you around, give you transportation, like all of that. So I have done an EF similar trip many times, but like back in college, and they're perfect because you don't have to think about anything. They show you all the sites, they plan everything, they put you up in accommodation. You're with people around your age. So they are such a good way to travel. So if you want to do one in 2026, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm so down. And also too, doing things last minute gets tricky with my job because I don't have PTO. So I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to take this day off and just go and not do anything. If I'm going to take a day off, whatever I would need to deliver to clients, I need to do ahead of time. So like for example, I'm going to be out for 2 weeks or not for 2 weeks, for a week for Christmas. So anything I would need to do that week in those like 40 hours, I have to do the week before. So this week I'm working like double to be able to take 1 week off. So if I'm going to take 10 days off and that overlaps like 2 work weeks, I have to do a lot of work ahead of time. So it gets kind of tricky, but EF does have this like section of their website that's like last minute kind of trips. And so you can get like significant discounts if you book it within like, you know, a couple months notice. And so like those two, I'm like, Grace, like if you can make it work, be spontaneous, go do it. And so I'm also trying to make some changes to my business that would allow me to do that more easily so that I don't have to like do anything crazy to be able to get time off. So
Yeah. No, I love that so much. I'll like quickly go into my last ones because I think your last ones are like health and wellness
yes.
related too. I just have like a few ones here that we can kind of talk about quickly because we want to talk about some podcast stuff as well. My health and wellness ones, the first one is to stop avoiding my health things. Frankly, I'm the worst with like going to doctor's appointments and I just totally put it off because I don't want to worry about it or deal with it. It's kind of like how you kind of ignore your money because it makes you anxious to get the process started of getting your money under control. But then once it's under control, you aren't anxious anymore. I think that way about health too. So it's my goal in 2026, especially in January, just to schedule all of my appointments, actually go to my doctor's appointments. And then I want to do comprehensive lab work and also a full body MRI in 2026. That is my goal. And I also saw because full body MRIs are typically like pretty expensive. I think Prenuvo, the popular company, is around $3,500. But Function Health, which is, and none of this is sponsored, by the way. Like we don't have any podcast sponsors.
But if they want to sponsor us,
yeah, if they want to
reach
sponsor
out.
us. Function Health is a company that does like comprehensive lab work, and it gives you so much more results than your typical like annual PCP visit would. They actually just released a full body MRI option for $500.
I was going to say there's a lab called Simon Med that's here, and they have a program called Simon One, and they have a full body MRI that's like between $500 and $900 depending on how many
So
things
it's
you add on.
becoming so much more accessible, and that's my goal. 2026 is just to get it all over with and not be anxious about it, not have to stress about it. But then the only other one that I'm thinking of is I really do want to put more effort into my like fitness in 2026, especially because I want to get engaged this year and I want to start planning like wedding planning and stuff. And I want to feel my most confident
Yeah.
during that process. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been coasting for a while and just kind of like putting half effort in, if that makes sense. So I want to push myself.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, before we get into the podcast goals, my last two goals on my list are to continue to grow in my faith. I think I've been pretty like, or not pretty transparent. I've been somewhat transparent about that on the podcast. And on my page, moving to St. Pete has helped a lot. I found like a really strong community that shares the same faith as me. And that's been really helpful in growing in that. And also like with health and wellness, my goal in 2026 is to figure out the rest of my chronic health issues. Guys, I'm so close. I am like on the cusp. It's just this like breathing issue that is lingering that we need to figure out. And we did a scan, we got answers, and I think that answer is like the root cause of everything. So I'm just waiting until a follow-up appointment in January, and then I have a second opinion in February because it may require surgery, which I'm like, goodness gracious. I've gone under anesthesia 3 times in 2025. I've had like 3 medical procedures, a surgery. Like I'm like, enough is enough. And I think my endo surgery was like my 6th surgery or something in the last like 5 years. So I've had enough of being cut open and whatnot, but it may require surgery. So I'm really, really, really hopeful though, because it feels like the last piece of this puzzle. And this has like been going on for 12 years. So this would be that would be so freeing and so amazing to be able to like take a full deep breath in and breathe. I feel it though. I feel like it is so close. And also too, just getting like continuing to be on like a good workout schedule. It's taken some kind of rearranging to figure out what works for my body now, knowing that I have endo and thinking about like you're figuring out what flares it and all of that. But I feel so much more equipped to figure that out now that I actually have the information about what is going on with my body. And so, yeah, I'm really excited though, like really excited and hopeful to just be able to be more disciplined about it because I actually can get there. So yay.
I love that.
Podcast
Yay.
goals.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about the podcast because I feel like every time we talk about this and kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, you guys are really interested and you leave a lot of comments in Spotify. So we wanted to take this time to just talk about where we see the podcast going in 2026 and what we want to do with it because we've been podcasting for actually so long and we do genuinely feel like 2026 is going to be our year and we're really going to grow and hit our stride in 2026. We made so much progress in 2025. Our listens are up. You guys are giving us such good feedback on the podcast. You're really engaged. You're submitting questions for our Q&A episodes. Like we're feeling so good, but we have so many goals going into 2026. So we have a couple that are like pretty immediate and things that we're trying to work on in the short term. And then we have some that are more like long-term like vision, things that we aren't necessarily going to start working on in January, but that we want to accomplish in 2026 as well. So do you want to
Mhm.
kick us off?
Yes. Okay. Our first one, and I want to give context to what this means too. So, our first like short-term goal and what we've been really focused on is hitting 10,000 consumption hours in a 30-day period. So, for like back-end context on Spotify, there's like an option, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, Erin, but if I there's like a section on Spotify where you can basically get like little ads injected into your episodes via Spotify, like native in the platform. And in order to even be like considered for that option to monetize, and granted, these are not, to my knowledge, these are like smaller ads. It's not like it's like, oh my gosh, we start getting like big bucks or whatever. This is just like to get to the threshold where we could monetize through that, you have to hit 10,000 consumption hours in a 30-day period, meaning that your podcasts were consumed for 10,000 cumulative hours between everybody who listened to them in a 30-day period. And so there's like kind of some like science to it to a degree that we've been trying to crack of like, if you make your episodes longer, or like you have to get people to listen all the way to the end of the episode. So anytime that y'all listen all the way to the end of the episode, it is very, very helpful for us. But like that is a big thing that would unlock more opportunity and like choice for us in terms of like what we get to do with the podcast, because then we can like reinvest the money back into it too.
Yeah, and it's not even just about like getting that money up
Yeah.
front because like Grace said, it's not like we're going to start making $100,000 a year on the podcast once we hit these hours. Like realistically, we're probably talking $1,000 a month maybe. But you only have to hit that once because like Grace said, it's a rolling 30-day period. So we have to hit it within a 30-day period. Like on the first day, all of those consumption hours expire and now you're like kind of back to square one, if that makes sense. So you only have to hit it once. And once we've hit that, it kind of frees up our ability to take more risks with the type of episodes that we're creating because we know we have to kind of test what types of episodes you guys like. And in 2025, our highest performing episodes were all around personal development, mindset, habits, routines, systems. So we've been really curating episodes that are around what is performing the best to hopefully give us and you guys the most chance of hitting those hours because that's what you guys are liking. However, we also know that there's probably other types of episodes that you guys want to listen as well. And we haven't been able to test those because we're trying to hit these consumption hours. So we're really excited to hit that and just free up the ability to like bring on more guests. We used to bring guests onto this podcast and sometimes you guys would really like that, but then other times we would bring guests on and the episodes would totally flop. So until we hit these consumption hours, we're not bringing on guests because we don't want an episode to just like flat out flop and it tank our ability to hit our consumption hours. So
and I think that when we have the, I mean, obviously when we're looking at the analytics on the back end, we're looking at how many people listened to the episode, like how far through the episode did you guys listen? You know, are you leaving comments and things in Spotify? That gives us the data to understand like what episodes did you like and not like. So if our consumption hours were really low all the time, we'd be like, okay, they ain't liking us, right? Like they did not like what we put out this month or whatever. So it is, yeah, of course it's great. It's a threshold for us to be able to monetize, but also like it is also about kind of like the proof of concept. Like what can we scale? What aspects of the podcast can we scale? What episodes are really enticing that we could bring in a guest on that topic? And obviously the more people that are listening to the podcast, we can get guests that you guys might request, on the podcast, people with different perspectives. But yeah, it's all part of like the growth because this is a business too. It's a business at the end of the day, and we are trying to scale a business. So at some point we need to make sure the business is bringing in revenue and like that is an aspect for revenue. But the other thing too that we want to do is once we get to that point where we're able to earn a little bit from the podcast is to be able to reinvest that money back into the business. So I know you've Erin has kind of taken the charge on that aspect of it. So you can speak to that.
Yeah. So, like we said, we're not expecting to make $1 million from ad revenue, like ad placements, once we hit our 10,000 consumption hours by any means. But I feel like Grace and I, especially in the last 6 months, have really been itching to kind of take this to the next step and really legitimize what we're doing here. But it's hard, and not saying like we've never invested any of our own personal money into this. We definitely have and a lot of time, but also like some money. But there's a few things that we're not necessarily comfortable doing until we have consistent income coming in, because these aren't like one-time expenses. These are going to be things that we are spending money on consistently every single month. So we want to make sure we have the revenue to support that. And those two things are, one, having a social media manager for the podcast and someone to really handle our brand. We're not super consistent with pulling the social clips and like posting them on our Instagram. Our podcast Instagram is, she needs some love. We just frankly don't have the capacity to manage another Instagram account and a TikTok account and posting on YouTube Shorts to get more people to view the podcast on YouTube. Like, there is so much that goes into having a podcast brand that we really need someone to be completely dedicated to, but we don't have the funds to do that right now. And we won't be comfortable doing that until we do have the funds for it. And then the second one is, and this kind of goes into some of our like personal goals for the year and just like getting out of the house more. We would love to get to a point where every like 2 months we're traveling to each other, either to like one of the cities that we're in or doing like a weekend trip in a bigger city and filming in person in a studio, because I do feel like video podcast is totally the way of the future. If you're not doing video, I really don't think long term this, not that you can't succeed with it, but it's the way that everything's going. You have to do video at this point. And we are a little bit limited with doing virtual videos. And like, it's worked so far. We can still provide value to you. We're not going to stop doing it if we can't do it in person. But we do know that it would take our podcast way further if we were able to dedicate some time and money to get into person and get into a studio together. So that's definitely a goal for us in 2026 as well.
And we talked about this too before we hopped on to film today, that like in theory we could take, like, we've made what, like $1,200 from the podcast total, and then I think like a third of that went to like the taxes to like paying the accountant, and then I think there was like another third went to like what we owed or whatever. Like it was just we have hardly made anything, but it's like we could literally take that money and book a studio for like a day and batch film 4 or 5 episodes and put those out. But then if we can't commit to that quality over and over, then that becomes really confusing. Like if our next 3 episodes were filmed in studio and then all of a sudden we went back to filming virtual, that creates an inconsistent brand. So it makes most sense to wait to do that when we have consistent income coming in on the podcast. They can allow us to do that. I also think, going back to what we were saying earlier in the episode about both desiring to really orient around impact in 2026, there is so much more we want to do with the podcast. And when we're actually able to, because it's really hard to justify pouring like 10 hours a week into the podcast when it generates $0, right? And I think that makes a lot of sense to people, especially because we've been doing this for 2 years. It's like, okay, once we're earning a little bit, then we can justify saying, okay, now it makes sense to pour a little bit more time, and maybe we launch the community that we talked about doing, or maybe we try to do a trip again or something. Like we can try to do more things when we know that it makes more sense financially for the company that the podcast is, because it is a business. There is an LLC for it. We are joint partners on this venture.
Yeah. The other kind of short-term goal is we're going to start going out of our way to get ad sponsors. And the reason why we think this is valuable to talk about is just because, again, even if you don't have a podcast, even if you're listening to this saying you want to be a TikTok content creator or a different type of business, like there is just value in hearing kind of like the monetization streams and how people are thinking about this. And I also do get a decent amount of questions about podcast monetization. Like I was just talking to one of my friends today who was curious about it and was asking, because they were thinking of starting a podcast, and she was asking about the monetization behind it. But we are going to start going out of our way to look for ad sponsors. Like we've been doing this for 120 episodes, and we have really never had a sponsor on any of our
We had, like,
episodes, which
one.
is, yeah, maybe one, which is actually crazy. And we kind of just got to a point where we realized that closed mouths don't get fed. And if we don't go after it, people aren't going to come knocking down our door. I think being content creators on social media, we're used to getting inbounds for partnerships. Like I would say for both of us, 90% of the partnerships that we do are inbound. We're not seeking them out. But I think we're starting to realize that that might not be the way that it works for podcasts. So in 2026, we are going to start putting time and energy into finding sponsors and proactively pitching and all of that.
Absolutely. Especially because on a podcast too, the analytics, like brands can't see from the outside how many people listen to the episodes, you know? They can see the social media page, which again, we have some trouble with, like with our podcast Instagram. So it's like, you know, they can't really see that from the outside. But I do think there's a lot of potential to bring partners that can bring a lot of value to you guys, or like cool products and things that are really useful onto the podcast that also generates the podcast revenue. And I think also too, like you said, we are two very normal women who just decided 2 years ago, when I was only, what was that? That was 2024. I was like
No, it was 2023.
2020. Oh my gosh. Wait.
Yeah, November
Wait,
of
has it been
2023 we
3?
start.
No, wait. Hold on. In my head, mentally, I was doing the math from 2026. We are still in fact in 2025 at the moment. Okay, hold on. Whoa, I just like spooked myself. It's like when we were in 2023, when we decided to start the podcast, was like July of 2023. I was less than a year into posting consistently on my social media. I had no clue what was going on, what I was doing. And then we just took action on it and launched it November 2023. And I feel like I didn't even start to have a clue what I was doing, I think, until like this year. And so, it's still only a little bit of a clue. It's not a full clue. So it's like, the same way, like we hope that we can show how we're actively building this as two normal people who are just trying to like take action and go after what we want. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just cool to watch the business evolve. And I hope that like sharing that we want to get sponsors is exciting for you all, and that you all are like, you want to keep hearing what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we want to be transparent about it. But I also think it's like, I don't know, we're, of course we would want sponsors in the podcast. Of course we want to turn this into like a profitable endeavor.
Yeah.
We would love to earn money and grow the podcast.
Yeah, I do think it should be exciting because going back to what we were saying, like the more money that we make, the more we can commit to this podcast, both from a time but also a monetary perspective. Like once we start making money, we can do all of the things that we've been talking about for 2 years. You talked about it before, but we did say in 2025 that we were thinking about launching like a membership community. We've talked about doing events, retreats. Like there are so many things that we envision for this brand, and we know it can be something, but we feel like this is the one hump that we need to get over to really kickstart that process. So I also kind of feel like this is a good opportunity to just kind of open it back up to you guys. If you're still listening to this probably means that you're interested in what we have going on in 2026. So let us know in Spotify, like what would you love to see from us in 2026? I know we've talked about doing like in-person events, maybe not a full-blown retreat, but like if I came to Florida and we did an event there or in a different city or whatever that may be. But we have talked about some of those things. We've talked about merch. Like our brand is so cute to have like building a life I love on a sweat set or something.
Mhm.
So we really are like setting ourselves up to be in a point where we can grow and scale and reach more people and impact more people. But definitely let us know in Spotify what you guys would like to see from us in 2026. But with that, we've talked for so long on this episode. So thanks for tuning into the podcast. Definitely come back in January because, like I said at the beginning, we're going to be doing kind of like a 4-part series. Obviously, there's 4 weeks in January. So every single Monday, we're going to be posting an episode that's directly related to making 2026 your best year yet. So definitely tune into those episodes. But thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.